Not since the reign of Bull Connor, the Commissioner of Public Safety during the Civil Rights Movement, had we saw such brutality by police officers on an American citizen. There have been numerous high-profile police brutality cases after the Rodney King televised beating, most notably the case of Abner Louima, a Haitian immigrant in 1997 who was beat and sodomized with a broken toilet plunger by Brooklyn police officer Justin Volpe, or the case of Amadou Diallo, a 23-year-old unarmed Guinean immigrant in New York City who was shot and killed on February 4, 1999 by 4 New York City Police Department plainclothes officers. They mistook his wallet for a gun, firing 41 shots at him, killing him instantly. Malice Green was a resident of Detroit, Michigan, who died while in police custody after being arrested by Detroit police officers Walter Budson and Larry Nevers. Both officers were later convicted of Green's death. The official cause of death was ruled due to blunt force trauma to his head. Nevers struck Green in the head with his flashlight approximately 14 times during the struggle. Sean Bell was unarmed outside a nightclub on the night before his wedding when he was confronted by an undercover and plainclothes NYPD. Fearing Sean Bell had a weapon, officers fired a total of 51 shots into a car that Bell was driving, killing Bell and wounding his 2 friends. Despite all of these high-profile cases, after the Rodney King beating, none had captured the headlines as King's case did. After all, what could be worse than what we all saw done to Rodney King on camera, other than seeing a citizen being killed in cold blood by a police officer on camera?
New video surfaced today in the shooting death of a young man by a BART police officer.
To show a Bay Area transit cop shoot an unarmed rider in the back while he was face down and on the ground. The bullet killed 22-year-old Oscar Grant.
But we also warn viewers you may find the video disturbing to watch and may want to turn away.
They label up as one of the most dangerous cities. I can show you better than tell you you wouldn't believe it. The other day the cops knocked the down, said they saw a gun. Cold thing about it, he ain't even had one. It's one of the most dangerous cities. I can show you better than tell you you wouldn't believe it. The other day the cops knocked the down, said they saw a gun. Cold thing about it, he ain't even had one. This moment got on my
Oscar Grant was fatally shot by BART police officer Johannes Meserly in Oakland, California in the early morning hours of New Year's 2009. Responding to reports of a fight on the Bay Area Rapid Transit train returning from San Francisco, BART police officers detained Oscar Grant and several other passengers on the platform at the Fruitvale BART station. Johannes Meserly and another officer were restraining Grant. Officer Meserly stood, drew his gun from his waistband, and shot Grant once in the back. Grant was unarmed. He was pronounced dead the next morning at Highland Hospital in Oakland. The events were captured on multiple digital and video cell phone cameras by witnesses on the platform that day. Before long, the graphic footage was all over the internet, viewed by millions. The following day saw both peaceful and violent protests. On January 13th, Alameda County prosecutors charged Meserly with second-degree murder. Meserly was the first officer in California history to be charged with second-degree murder. He resigned his position and pleaded not guilty. The trial began on January 10, 2010. Michael Raines, Meserly criminal defense attorney, argued that Meserly mistakenly shot Grant with his pistol, intending to use his taser when he saw Grant reaching for his waistband.
And the reason why we don't feel it was accidental is because we know that had it been an accident, he would have initially said that it was an accident. And he didn't even just not say it that night, but the day after, of course a week after, he never claimed that it was an accident. What he did claim was that he thought Oscar was reaching for a gun. And he repeated that over and over to his so-called comrades on the police force. Oscar was able to validate what we had claimed was never an accident because his very last picture he took was Johannes Meserly with his taser in his hand. And to add to that, even the fact that in testimony what we discovered is that Meserly had pulled his taser out twice before he actually shot Oscar, and then claimed that he mistaked his taser, of course, for his gun for his taser. But the most important part of this is that Oscar, sad to say, took a picture with Mesley with his taser in his hand before he was murdered.
On July 8, 2010, after only a day and a half of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Mesley was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and the gun enhancement. Judge Robert Perry, who it should be noted coincidentally presided over the Rampart trial, claimed he erred in his instructions to the jury and in the interest of justice removed the gun enhancement guilty verdict, essentially making himself the 13th juror.
Judge Perry set over the Rampart case where many of those arrests were falsified. The city of LA had to pay millions of dollars out to those individuals that had false evidence planted on them, and Judge Perry happened to be the judge over those police officers that got off. He's an ex-DA representative himself. All his decisions is based in favor of the police.
The system has let us down, but God will never, ever let us down. Though the system has failed us, though we fight continually, but you know what? One thing I know, that the race is not given to the swift nor to the strong, but to the one who endures till the end. And as a family and as a nation of African American people, we will continue to fight for our equal rights in this society. The scripture tells us that the rich bribe the judges, and certainly we have seen the judges be bribed.
Mesley was given a 2-year sentence with good time served, reducing his sentence to 11 months. Initial protests against the ruling were peacefully organized. Looting, arson, destruction of property, and small riots broke out after dark. Nearly 80 people were eventually arrested. The Oscar Grant shooting was even more painful to watch than the Rodney King beating. Here we have a young man lying on his stomach, with his hands behind his back, with no weapon, and is murdered in cold blood as onlookers watched in horror. The cry for justice was heard across the nation, but the cry seemed to fall upon deaf ears. Police brutality had reared its ugly head in Oakland again, in the worst way. Johannes Mesley has been released from jail and has appealed his conviction. At the time of this film, he is awaiting a decision. Some ended in bloody massacres, like in the case of Nat Turner, where several whites, including women and children, were murdered in the process of the slave rebellion. Oakland, California, March 21st, 2009. What started out as a routine traffic stop quickly turned deadly. 27-year-old Lavelle Mixon was pulled over for a traffic violation by 2 motorcycle officers. As the motorcycle officers approached the car, Mixon opened fire, killing both policemen. Mixon fled. Approximately 2 hours later, after some 200 officers from Oakland and surrounding cities combed the area searching for Mixon, 3 SWAT officers were shot when their team found Mixon hidden in an apartment. Mixon was killed in a gun battle with SWAT. When the smoke cleared, 4 officers were dead along with Mixon. The incident will be ranked among the most deadly attacks on law enforcement in California history. The officers were identified as Sergeant Mark Dunnigan, Sergeant Irvin Romans, Sergeant Daniel Saki, and John Hedge. As in most cases, Lavelle Mixon was portrayed as a monster that had no reason or justification to murder good policemen who risked their lives every day to serve and protect. But the fact is, as some who knew Mixon later stated, Mixon was a victim himself in the past of police brutality. He witnessed it growing up in Oakland and became, like many Black and Latino men today, paranoid and afraid of the police. To law enforcement and many people on that side of the fence, Mixon was indeed a monster. But to those who knew him and shared in his struggle to cope with day-to-day life in Oakland, he was a martyr. On the day of the Lavelle Mixon shooting rampage, one cop in particular would emerge from the day's dramatic violence as a department hero. His name is Patrick Gonzalez. Some colleagues nickname him Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II. But to many in the Black and Latino neighborhoods Gonzalez polices, he has long been known as something else, a loose cannon. He's left a trail of victims in his wake, says Kathy King, the mother of one of Gonzalez's shooting victims. But he's a valued member of the police department. Multiple lawsuits alleging wrongful death, excessive force, illegal searches, and racial profiling incidents involving Gonzalez has resulted in $3.6 million paid by the city in settlement money. Law enforcement experts say he fits the profile of the bad apple minority in OPD that is responsible for most of the allegations of brutality that plague its relationship with the city's communities of color. Yet Gonzalez has been consistently promoted and deployed into sensitive situations throughout his career, and without public outcry. That's because few know about either his record or his promotions. His extensive personnel file today is off limits to the public, thanks to a dramatic rollback in the transparency of law enforcement records following a Supreme Court ruling 5 years ago. Since the late 1990s, Officer Patrick Gonzalez has been involved in 4 shootings. Officer Patrick Gonzalez has shot and killed Joshua Russell, has shot and paralyzed Amir Rollins, has shot and killed Gary King, and has shot and killed Lavelle Mixon. Each shooting was under questionable circumstances. In the Lavelle Mixon case, Patrick Gonzalez's loose cannon actions resulted in the death of 2 fellow SWAT officers. Patrick Gonzalez remains a paid Oakland police officer now working in the robbery division. Most recently, he was involved in a clash with Occupy Oakland protesters where misconduct was alleged. Hector Jimenez is considered to be another bad apple in the Oakland Police Department. Officer Jimenez has killed 2 unarmed suspects on different occasions, Mac Jody Woodfox and Andrew Maupin. Both suspects were shot in the back. Both suspects was alleged to be reaching for their waistband. In both instances, no weapons were recovered.
It's one of my new poems entitled The Average Black Man. You like it? Hope you like it. The average black man is the opposite of what I want to be. In and out of juvenile hall, penitentiary at age 18. This is the man's vision amongst black males, the opposite of me. No father figure in their life is what's blamed upon thee. My dad gunned down by OPD, but sorrow is only one part of me. So I'm gonna keep moving on, and I'm gonna be what I wanna be. My father was a great, great example to me. See, the streets was all he knew. He was the average black man.
Merrick Bobb, one of the nation's foremost experts on police reform, said most officers rarely fired their weapons, and the ones that do have a greater propensity to use force on suspects. There are correlationships between officer-involved shootings and other use of force incidents in the life of an officer, Bobb said. The use of deadly force has been at the heart of tension between the Oakland police and the communities of color for decades.
Listen, the 7th point of the Black Panther Party 10-point platform and program, which was our basic guiding, agenda, we can say, was that we wanted an end to police brutality and police occupation of our communities and community control of police. So the first wave of what the Black Panther Party did was to address that. Why? Because those were the people that were our only relationship to the government. If you were stopped by the police, you suffered to be stopped and frisked and killed. So you weren't going to be going to court. So we didn't know court, government, city, what does this have to do with us? Our relationship to the government in the black community, we identified as the police, and the police were an occupying force that were oppressing us and certainly brutalizing us.
OPD has been under the oversight of U.S. District Judge Thelton Henderson since 2003. Records obtained through a California Public Records Act request supports Bobb's analysis. A small cadre of Oakland police officers is responsible for a disproportionate amount of controversial use of force incidents. 16 officers currently in the Oakland Police Department are responsible for 40 of its shootings from 2000 to 2010, or nearly half of the total 85 shootings. Misconduct allegations filed with the CPR against these officers would have been public record before the Copley ruling. They are now confidential. Only one officer involved in Oakland shooting incidents, Hector Jimenez, was disciplined for shooting incidents between 2004 and 2008, the most recent years for which records are available. Approximately 1 year after the murder of Oscar Grant by BART cop Johannes Messerly, OPD was in the headlines again for yet another shooting of an unarmed African-American male. Derek Jones was a local barbershop owner that had a domestic dispute with his child's mother. The police arrived, Derek Jones fled from officers into an alley, and Derek Jones was shot and killed after officers claimed he reached for his waistband. Derek Jones was later found to be possessing a small electronic scale.
Hello, I'd like to say to Mr. Jones, first of all, that your son was a real man. I'm his neighbor. I was there when the confrontation got started at 3 o'clock. The young lady was the problem. Your son did everything in his power to stop fighting that young lady. She tore up his business. She hit him in his face several times. She hit him upside his head with a stick. He walked up and down the block trying to avoid her for over 5 hours. Your son is an innocent man. The 911 call was a bogus phone call that brought those police over there and shot your baby. He is an innocent man. Let the truth be told.
Look, Alameda County Sheriff's Department, 7 years. 7 years, all right? And Alameda County Sheriff's Department trains Oakland PD, Berkeley PD. So I know what goes into that training, all right? I know that, all right? And I know they're trained better than that, and they did not follow P&P, policy and procedure, all right? They did not, and that's why this young man is dead. They didn't have to kill him, he was unarmed. The woman had been harassing him for over a year. Every time he called them on her, they arrested him.
With the OPD being under a microscope, so to speak, and under the threat of a federal takeover, you would think that officer-involved shootings under peculiar circumstances would no longer take place. Think again. In the early morning hours of May 6, 2012, 18-year-old Alan Bluford and friends were standing on a street corner waiting for a ride home from a party. 2 Oakland police officers approached the young men, believing one of them was armed. Bluford fled from officers. A foot chase ensued for 2 or 3 blocks. When the chase ended, Alan Bluford laid in a puddle of his own blood after being shot 3 times by Officer Miguel Meso. Initial reports circulated by the OPD stated that there was a shootout between an officer and a fleeing suspect. The officer was allegedly shot in the stomach, and both the officer and suspect were rushed to Highland Hospital, where the suspect later died.
So here's the story. Okay, let's start off with what happened. Alan and his 2 friends were standing waiting for some friends to pick them up near 90th and Birch. The police officers, listen to what I say, were riding with their lights off, approached them with their guns drawn. And then my cousin ran. There's a lot of grown men out here that will run in that situation. There's a lot of grown men and women out here that will run in that situation, no matter your race. And when he ran about 2 blocks, and when he got near a light post, he stopped. My cousin was fast. You've heard a lot of people talk about my cousin's athletic abilities. Anybody who describes his athletic ability says he was fast and he was shifty. So when he heard people's voices and music in a house, and when he got near some light, he stopped. And he turned around The police officers initially said that he was in a gunfight. They have supposed witnesses that said that he died on the porch steps of the house, shooting in the air where bullets went into his house. They have another supposed witness that said he was running down the streets, shooting randomly. All we know today, what do we know today? Today we know he never fired a firearm. Today we know he didn't die on anybody's porch. He died under a light post. They said that they rushed the police officer and my cousin to the hospital, to Highland Hospital, where he succumbed to his wounds, and the officer was stabilized. They never took my cousin to Highland Hospital. Never. But what do we know today? Today we know that his body laid there for over 4 hours. He laid there. So that's very different than what they've been telling us. What do we know? They initially told us that he died on the porch. The gun was found and they admit 30 feet from his body. What they say today is that Allen turned around and pointed a gun at the police officer. If he pointed that gun at the police officer, why wasn't that gun right by his body? Why was that gun 30 feet away from his body? They continue to talk to us like we're stupid.
As in the Oscar Grant case, the community has rallied around the Bluford family. However, unlike the Oscar Grant case, no charges have been filed against the officer involved in the shooting. The fight for justice for Alan Bluford has reinvigorated the Oakland community. There continues to be rallies and protests led by the Bluford family throughout the city. They are devoted and committed to getting justice for their son and are determined to be heard. The Bluford family has retained the law offices of John Burris and has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Oakland. As if the Oscar Grant shooting in Oakland, which was video recorded and watched by millions, wasn't enough, another tragic event was ready to unfold with even more peculiar implications. San Francisco, California, July 16, 2011. 19-year-old Kenneth Harding, while running away from a $2 bus fare evasion, was shot by San Francisco police. Initial reports by police stated that when Kenneth Harding fled, allegedly he fired shots at the police. Police returned fire, striking him and killing him. By the time Kenneth Harding fell to the ground after being shot, there were cell phone cameras on scene to catch his final moments. This is where we see police basically watching him die, with no officer offering him any medical attention as bystanders watch in anger. The story has changed many times since the initial report. At first, no gun was recovered from the scene. Then a mysterious cell phone video appeared, allegedly showing the gun on the ground near Harding, and someone picks the gun up and flees. However, the scene is crawling with police, and it is very hard to believe that not one officer saw this gun lying on the ground. Recently, the police have come out with yet another story.
The gun's going to be about mid-sternum. Apparently, the officer shot, hit the suspect in the leg. So imagine, if you would, an instant hamstring pain pull would cause the person to lurch, and the gun entered the right side of the neck and lodged behind the cheek.
Kenneth Harding's mother, Danica Chapman, gives us some insight into the case.
Video cameras out there that day, but because they fell upon city property, they have confiscated them and, still hasn't released any other information. I went to a hearing last week just trying to get some of the information released, and the board for the meeting was not complete, so they were trying to practice unethically, and somebody threatened to write every board member up if they continue with the meeting. So they had to cancel the hearing, so we have to wait till next month to go back just to even have testimony heard in regards to releasing the footage. I'll never count on receiving justice from them people, but I will always count on receiving God's justice. He'll have the last word in regards to my son's case.
The Kenneth Harding case is yet another case with many questions that have yet to be answered. Like most instances where deadly force is used, this is not an open and shut case. And that's the sad part. You would think that when the life of a human being is taken, so-called justifiably, that it would be a situation where there were no other options for the police.
Well, ultimately, a policy doesn't shoot you. A policy doesn't have a billy club. A policy doesn't write a police report. It's the individual who's there. When I have my criminal defense clients, the excuse of, well, this is the society I grew up in, or this is the home I was raised in, or this is all I know, doesn't count for much as it relates to whether or not they're going to get convicted of a crime. And it's the same, it should be the same standard applied to the officers. Because right is right, wrong is wrong. And I don't think you need a policy to know that you shouldn't be shooting a 15-year-old kid in the back of the neck. There's no policy that caused that to take place. That's a decision, a human decision, that's based upon an officer valuing, devaluing, or having no value for human life.
Stockton, California, nicknamed Mudville in its early beginnings, on the surface seems like any other all-American city. But as you probe deeper into the fabric of the city, Stockton is a town facing many problems. Twice voted the National City League's All-American City. However, more recently, the city has been plagued by crime and violence. In 2011, Stockton beat its previous homicide record from 1992 with 56 homicides. With a jobless rate of 18.4%, up from 18.1% a year ago, Stockton, California has one of the worst unemployment problems in the country. The huge percentage of unemployed residents may have contributed to the horrible crime rates in the city. In the wake of such violence, one might ask what role the police are playing in curbing it. Tori Verber Salazar, a deputy district attorney with San Joaquin County, states law enforcement has had to develop strategies for dealing with the rise in violent crime. What are those strategies, you might ask? Between 2010 and 2012, there were numerous officer-involved shootings in Stockton. 3 involved unarmed suspects, all resulting in the suspect's death. On July 22, 2010, James Rivera, a 16-year-old black male, was allegedly joyriding in a stolen van. Police chased Rivera and rammed the van into a house, where the van was lodged with a police car behind it. The police officers claimed they ordered Rivera out of the van, and Rivera began revving the engine of the van. The officers, allegedly fearing for their lives, fired 48 shots into the van, hitting Rivera 18 times and killing him. James Rivera was unarmed. He died a day before his 17th birthday.
It's pretty clear that the way these bullets were entered into this boy's body, that they were off to the side, and they were not in imminent danger.
The officer got out their police cars and said, "Get out," and next thing you know, they heard pow, pow, pow. And you see here that how would James be able to hold his hand up, because you couldn't even see if he did hold his hands up. For me as being a mother, by looking at this picture, that I feel my son was knocked unconscious. I don't feel my son even had a chance to hear what was going on. These pictures shows that Officer Peter Smith said that they did not have this type of weapon out there on the scene. From the 27 report that the DA showed supposed to be justified, it was an AR-15. These is a picture that the picture shows that the 15 damage. Shot my son in the head. From the 27 report, said that was the first bullet that killed him. You see right here, my son, James Earl Rivera, arms are disconnected, which had to been sewed back together. And also you see different bullet holes from different area of the body. And you also can see that his arm is broke as well right here. This is the close-up size of the hole in his head. So we as the people in the community want you to look at this and you can determine it yourself what type of weapon was used. And then at the crime scene, when I was there, officers smiling like it's a homicide celebration. You know, and I felt the tribe, some kind of, you know, you lose a loved one through violence. Why is the officers joking? What is the joke about killing a 16 unarmed young man?
This is a picture right here, pretty suspicious picture. When have you ever heard of a police car on a scene of a homicide with their hood up right here? That's very suspicious to us. Apparently, it was 6 different agencies out there for one thing. Multiple cars were behind James. He wasn't in no way going anywhere. It's just pretty suspicious that they would have a hood up on a vehicle only on one of the police cars, with all these other agencies out here behind him. It's just pretty suspicious that this hood would be up like that. Okay, it's been over 2 years, and we have not received not a police report, dash cam video, his personal property, police report, and answers to why they shot our son. It was a total of 48 rounds. 18 of those rounds entered our son's body. He was killed in seconds on the spot. He didn't die in the ambulance. He didn't die at the hospital or anything like that. He died on the spot, on the scene.